I did want to talk to you about this. This is, Arizona has this new, I just call it the school voucher program, the ESAs. I know they want to call it something else, but this is where parents can send their kids to private schools and the state gives them money for it. It's, I don't know what the number is now, $7,500 per kid, give or take. And what happens is the parents submit bills, that anything that costs that they've incurred, and it can be tuition and things, but it can also just be, especially if you're homeschooling, it can be things you're buying for your kid, your student around the house. And there's been a lot of controversy about this, right? We've seen this, people buying big Lego sets or taking trips or pianos and all sorts of things. And it's questionable whether or not that is education related. And there's an argument to be had. But the bottom line is there's also been there's been some fraud. I mean, there's been people taking state money and using it for things for which it was not intended. And generally, the government doesn't want that to happen, right? None of us do. Even when we're talking about Elon Musk and talking about this new DOGE committee and how we're going to cut costs. I mean, one of the first things anybody talks about is there's fraud, right? There's fraud in the Department of Defense. There's fraud in Medicare. There's people who are getting money when they shouldn't get it. That's what happens, and it costs us billions and billions of dollars every year, including here in Arizona, where it's costing millions of dollars. So there have been issues. There's been a lot of controversy about some fraud in this system. It's not, look, overwhelmingly it's not. Most people are parents who are taking the money and following the program, but there are people who are abusing it. And the fact is that the legislature, when it passed this, did not put funding in, or certainly not enough funding to control it. That there's 89,000 requests for reimbursement that come in through the superintendent Department of Education, the superintendent of public instruction's office, Tom Horn, and he's been hearing from people who are saying this is taking too long for me to get reimbursed. A lot of folks, we don't have money lying around to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on our schooling, the kids' schooling. We spend it, we submit it, and we expect to get reimbursed. And it wasn't happening quickly. So Tom Horn's answer to that, the solution to that, according to Tom Horn, our superintendent of public instruction, is to say, we're just not going to check any request under $2,000. We're not going to check. It's going to be automatic. So you submit a receipt for $1,750 for something, no matter what it is. It could literally be we went to Vegas and lost at roulette, and the Arizona Department, the superintendent of public instruction, is going to cut you a check for $1,750. Think about that for a minute. That's literally, and to come out publicly and say that, it'd be bad enough if that's what was going on behind the scenes. If behind the scenes they said, my goodness, we are so far behind, we have to just start approving these. We don't have time to actually look at each one individually because we'll never get caught up. So what we're going to start doing is just cutting checks. We're going to automatically do it. That would be bad enough. If we found out that a Democrat was doing that, people would lose their minds, right? That we're wasting government resources, we're spending government money. How can we possibly cut those checks without being sure, without confirming they're for legitimate expenses that should be reimbursed under the law? That would be bad enough. What's worse is telling us that's what you're doing. So now you're telling people, go ahead and be fraudulent. Go ahead and submit a fraudulent receipt. Go ahead. Even, let's say you didn't spend all the money on your student, but go ahead. We're telling you right now, if you submit a receipt, we're going to pay you. It's automatic. It can be for anything. It can be for any. Take the kids to McDonald's every day. Go for it. Go to Costco, buy some nice steaks. Go ahead. You can buy anything. You can go buy some booze. Right? You can go buy some nice Jack Daniels or some vodka and submit the receipt to the state, and the state's going to automatically reimburse you. And Tom Horn, he came on this radio show. He came on this station and he said, we're going to automatically do it. We're not going to check any. I mean, think about this for a second. It's that ridiculous. That is ridiculous. You can't spend, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And you're literally telling people, go ahead and submit items that would otherwise not be reimbursed. We're going to reimburse you. But we're telling you up front, just make sure it's under $2,000. Because over $2,000, we're going to check. But under $2,000, carte blanche. You get it whatever you want. Well, Governor Hobbs has come out and said, Tom, what are you doing? You can't do that. You're inviting fraud. You're inviting a waste of public money. You can't do that. And that's what Governor Katie Hobbs has done now. She's come out and said, you can't do that. And she's asking privately and publicly, she's asking Tom Horn to reconsider that plan. And look, there needs to be some funding put in place. I mean, I get it. I understand the frustration of people who are complying with the law and they're submitting their reimbursements and they're not getting done. I understand Tom Horn and his office and their frustration that they can't. And I don't know if it's mismanaged. I don't know if there's ineptness going on there or incompetence, or as he's saying, is there's just not enough funding. They don't have the people. He said there were 89,000 reimbursement requests behind. Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's a huge number. So obviously something's wrong. Maybe we need to hire some people. Maybe the governor needs to get with the legislature and hire some people to go through this. But the answer cannot be, we're just going to automatically cut you a check every time you submit a receipt. I mean, I wish, can you imagine? Imagine if your office did that. Let's say you work for a place and every once in a while you get to go out and have lunch, or you have a business expense, you travel. You know, when you submit those things back, they go through that with a comb. Did you stay in the hotel at the level you're allowed to stay in? Did you spend too much at dinner? There's a cap, how much you can spend on each meal. Where did you rent your car? Did you use the right program? They don't reimburse anything without looking at it and making sure you're complying with the standards and doing everything you can. Because businesses don't want to throw that money away. They're not going to waste their money. They're not going to do it. Why on earth would the state do that? This is our money. It's my money. It's your money. Hundreds of millions of my dollars, as if I had hundreds of millions of dollars. But you know what I'm saying. It's insane. And again, if he hadn't told anybody, if behind the scenes Tom Horn told his staff, look, we're going to go through this fast. We're going to do like voter signature verification fast on this stuff. You know, I made a little joke there. But we're going to do like a 3-second look at each receipt. Make sure it's a receipt. And then we're going to cut the check. If he had said that to try to catch up, I wouldn't like it, but at least we wouldn't know. This way, to come out publicly and say, this is what I'm doing, you're literally telling people to commit fraud and it's okay. That's what you're telling them. You're telling people submit a receipt for anything, and you're going to get reimbursed. And look, again, the vast majority of people aren't going to do anything illegal. They're going to submit appropriate to be reimbursed expenses. I get that. But you have to know. You have to know there are going to be people who submit expenses that would not and should not be reimbursed. It's going to happen. It's happening now. It already is happening. And now you're inviting them to do it. I simply don't understand the logic behind this at all. And I appreciate what Governor Hobbs is doing here. I hope there's a discussion. This shouldn't become a big political fight. It should be, what do we do to make this right? How do we fix this? If there's not enough funding to appropriately administer this program, then let's get that fixed. But you can't just tell people, submit any receipt and we're going to automatically reimburse you up to $2,000 per receipt. You can't do it because you're inviting fraud and you're going to get fraud.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.